Brothers, I come before you again, and today I have an advanced tutorial on the power sword, and more specifically, changing your stances while using the power sword. Okay, so as Bulwarks, the power sword is our class exclusive weapon, and we know that it has two different styles. It has the speed style, which has some AoE in its combo, but it's mostly used for single target focus, and then the power style, which is for AoE and cleaving down multiple enemies at a time. Okay, now the game refers to these as styles, but I'm simply just going to be calling them stances. So that's what we're referring to when we say speed stance or power stance. Okay, and today I'm going to show you five, yes, five different ways that you can change your stance. I think a couple of these most players will probably be aware of and probably have done uh, multiple times, but I think a couple of these will also catch some of you off guard and you might not know about it. So this could be some interesting knowledge to have. Now whether or not it's going to be useful to you during your gameplay is completely up to you, but I just want to get this information to you and then you can decide whether it's useful or not. All right, and before we get started, you might be looking at my Space Marine here and asking yourself, how in the world is his plasma pistol just charged? How is he casually walking around with a charged plasma pistol? And stick around at the end because it's a neat little trick. It's a small tip, but I will share that with you at the end. So stick around for that. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we're here in the little training facility and the barge, and we're gonna start with number one. So number one is just the method that the game tells you to use, which is to you can switch your stance in neutral as long as you're not attacking or blocking. You can switch your stance just by holding the melee button. So we all know this, right? So you can switch between speed. So speed is when you have the dull looking electricity on your blade, and then power is when it glows bright and you have a lot more electricity on the blade. Okay, so just holding the melee button will switch between the styles. You can do that while you're walking around, running. Pretty simple concept, right? As long as you're not blocking or attacking, you can just hold melee to switch. Okay, and then number two, the second one is you can switch your stance after a dodge. So when you press dodge, if you hold the melee button, you will do an attack, and the attack will be uh, the jump attack from the opposite stance. So right now I'm in power stance, but if I press dodge and hold melee, he's going to do the air thrust and immediately go into speed stance. So if you can look at my blade and tell. So right now I'm going to do it again. Right now I'm in speed stance. I'm just going to press dodge and hold melee, and he's going to do the opener for the power stance, and now I'm in power stance. So you can do this while you're attacking. And oh, I messed it up. There it is. So just like that. And that's a quick way to change your stance, right? Just like that. So that's one way. That's the second way that you can switch your stance. Now the second part to that is the third method. So number three is you can switch your stance while you are rolling. So in order to roll, you have to dodge and then press dodge again, right? So all right, so you do the roll, but when you start the roll, you're gonna immediately start holding the melee button to switch your stance. So it's gonna look like this, right? So right now I'm in power stance and I'm gonna roll and switch to speed stance, just like that. Show it one more time. Now I'm in power stance. Very simple to do. There it is. All right, so that's number three. So we know we have the neutral stance change, and then we have the dodge stance change, and we also have the roll stance change. All right. Now the fourth method is a little bit advanced, and I'm gonna do it first, and then I'm going to explain how I did it. I actually came across this method by accident, and it took me like a few hours to figure out how that happened, and then I finally was able to recreate it. So now I understand what was going on. So I'm going to show it to you first, and then I'm going to explain exactly how I did it. Okay, so you see that? All right, so I'm gonna do it one more time, just so. All right, so what I am doing here is we know that whenever we swing our weapon, if we pause momentarily, we will enter the power whirl stance, and the power whirl stance just allows you to execute a power whirl, right? So you pause for a moment, and then you press the melee button again, and it does a power whirl. So that little preparation phase here is the power whirl stance. Okay, so from that you get a power whirl. Now what I'm doing is I am putting myself in a state where I cannot execute a power whirl. And if you look at my overlay, you can see that I added the mouse to the overlay. And the way that I'm able to do this is I am holding down the left mouse button, which is the button I would usually use to shoot my weapon or to shoot my pistol. But by holding that down, you can see that I now can't execute a power whirl. Even though I go into the stance, whenever I hit melee, I can't execute a power whirl. It just immediately starts with the first hit of the combo again. So it's canceling out the ability to hit a power whirl. Now from there, you can change your stance. While you are in this, you can change your stance. So as you can see that I'm changing my stance multiple times. Now, what you can do is, and this is kind of like a situation that you would be in, right? So you'll be in your power stance. So, and you'll be doing like wide swings on like minorous enemies, and then all of a sudden, a major, happens to, be approaching you. And then you can pause for a moment, switch stance, and immediately go into speed stance from there. Pause for a moment, switch stance, then you can end it with the power whirl if you want to, you know. So you just gotta release it in order to actually perform the power whirl. But you're basically going to basically press your trigger or your left mouse button and then continue holding it, and then you can still do all your melee attacks from there, right? You can still do all of your melee attacks while holding the left mouse button or your trigger. Pause, switch, pause, switch, and you have to be in full like power whirl stance. You have to wait until you're in power whirl stance in order to execute the switch. Okay, and then you can combine that with, the tips that we talked about earlier, right? So you could be doing this, switch to power whirl, and then boom. So you can combine those tips with the dodge, um, to switch stances, and then you can switch stance while you're in power whirl stance. So that's just a neat little trick that I just so happened to find out the other day while I was messing around. All right. So once again, you have to press and hold the your trigger or your left mouse button, and then you will be what I call an infinite power stance or infinite power whirl stance. I'm sorry, infinite power whirl stance, because you can't execute your power whirl anymore. It's just going to cancel back into the first hit of the combo. Then from there you can just change your stance. But you just have to continue holding it down the whole time. Now another benefit to doing that is uh, your gun strike will execute instantaneously. Let's say you were, doing a combo on a major, and then you happen to parry during that. If you were holding down the left mouse button when that parry goes off and it creates a gun strike opportunity, it will instantaneously execute your gun strike, because the game registers you holding down your trigger as you shooting your weapon already. So the moment that your gun strike becomes available, it will execute that gun strike. Sometimes that's a good thing, especially a bit against like large targets. Let's say like the Hive Tyrant, because the Hive Tyrant has like multiple hit combos and you can parry each one of those hits. What that does is allow you to parry, and then it will instantly execute the gun strike and give you time to react to the second hit with another parry or a dodge, and if it's a perfect dodge, that can give you another gun strike into another perfect dodge or parry, and it's just a very fast way to execute it. Now there's also a con to that, because sometimes when you're meleeing, you might hit some Majoris enemies and they might open up to a gun strike, but it doesn't always execute the gun strike on the Majoris. With the majors, it executes it instantly. With Minoris, it's kind of wonky sometimes. So that's kind of like one of the cons to it, but I think it's a very beneficial way to change your stance. Okay. All right, and then the fifth way to change your stance is you can change your stance while doing a parry. And this is like a very advanced tactic. And to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to go to the third trial, and I'm going to spawn the Tyrannet Ravener, and I'm just going to show you on him exactly what that looks like. All right, now we got the Ravener here. Let's do this correctly. All right. So that's when you do it incorrectly, is you get a neutral stance change. But when you do it correctly, it's going to do it during the parry animation, just like that. Yep, that's it right there. You can see, look at the sword changing its stance. And it's a very, you got to like tap the parry button very fast. And I only recommend this for fencing weapons. Don't do this with a balanced weapon. But for fencing weapons, because of our new increased parry window, we can do that. That's what allows us to do that. Okay, so you can switch your stance during a parry, and it looks pretty cool. It looks more stylish. It adds a little bit more, flair to your game. It makes your gameplay a little bit cooler, in my opinion. So if you want to add some flair and some flash to your gameplay, then I think that is one way to do it. So just, you have to press it really fast. If you look at my keyboard, R is my melee button and F is my parry button, and this is the speed at which you need to do it. So it's just like that. You're just quickly tapping parry and then holding the melee button just like that. It's really fast. But as long as you do it on time, you have a fencing weapon with the increased parry window, then you'll be fine. It'll switch correctly, and it just adds more flair to your game. Okay, and then the little bonus tip that I was talking about previously with the plasma pistol. So normally, you charge up your plasma pistol all the way and then you shoot it, right? But if you partial charge your plasma pistol and then dodge out of it, you will basically get it to cosmetically look like it's in a charged state. It's not actually in a charged state. It just looks like it is. Okay, so you partial charge and then dodge, and as you can see, it keeps your plasma pistol in this charged state, and you couple that with the power stance, and you just get this awesome glow on your character from both the sword and the plasma pistol, and you can just run around like that, and it just looks cooler. You just look more badass, right? So that's just a small tip. So, and then once you shoot it again, you can see that it dies back down. So you just have charge and then dodge, and it will stay in this charged state, and and then you're good to go. You got more drip. You look cooler on the battlefield. All right, so those were the 5 tips, the 5 methods that I found in order to stance dance, if you will, and basically changing your stance during combat. So if you have any questions or concerns or comments, just put them down below, and I'll try to get to anyone who has any questions and get those answered. But with that, may you go forth, shield in hand, and continue to safeguard the Imperium. The Emperor protects.